Home, the gold.
He could be too far. No, he's kicking. Oh, what a catch!
Puts a spicy forehand out in front of Naomi Morcilla.
Move for the win. Team Canada. Garrett Wu!
Santos with the layout grab.
Oh, that fantastic grab. The claws of Chaffer.
Canada just became the world champions.
Canada and the rest of the world, you're listening to the Huckin podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Theo, currently recording out of Toronto, Ontario.
And I'm Danie Proby from Vancouver, BC, and we are your coast-to-coast guide to all things Canadian Ultimate. Why are you in Toronto? Tell us.
I can't share all the personal news yet because I haven't, posted officially up on my Instagram. All you need to know is I'm moving back and forth between one city and Toronto for the time being.
You can't do breaking news here on this wonderful podcast?
I mean, breaking news is I got a new job. So, once I get our lovely photographer at this place to take pictures of me, then maybe I'll release it public. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, you're wearing the local 613 jersey right now. Is that just like a goodbye type thing? Or is it a see you later type thing?
That's a good question. Actually, on the last day of work, I wore my local 613 Sun hoodie to lunch. And they're like, you're leaving Kingston. Why are you wearing this? So that was kind of funny. But I don't think I'll be in Kingston anytime soon. So
The Lime City, though.
Limestone City, you know.
I'm getting closer. Every time I'm like a little bit more right, but it's never quite there. So, that's unfortunate. What else have you been up to?
What else have I been up to? Honestly, just working this new gig. Oh, did the field pass? Did the field pass? That was hype. Hopefully, some of you subscribers joined that. That was like really fun. It was a long day, but it was cool. Unfortunately, we didn't see Northwest Women's. Unfortunate because of location, but you saw some upsets, saw some history being made. Congrats to those teams. We'll talk about it in the club recap, but congrats to the teams that have never made to nationals before. It's pretty cool. Only select few people get to make nationals every year. You being one of them.
It doesn't seem like there was too many upsets on the women's side in terms of who eventually got the bids. Maybe so on the order of the bids, but on the men's side, man, that was spicy.
Yeah, sorry, Northeast. We're going to talk about you in a bit, but sorry, Northeast men's.
Well, I'm sure this is an episode they're going to skip. So
yeah, they probably won't listen to it. But what about you? You're TOCing. What is that for the people at home? Because they might not know.
Teacher on call, so substitute teacher. And I substitute sometimes when I have time, and I had time today. So I was at a school called Moskrop, and I was teaching PE. And by that, I mean watching them play handball. So very exciting stuff. I like TOCing because I actually get a lot of work done while I do it. So I kind of like double dip, get some Team Canada work done, get some Elevate work done if I'm teaching like social studies or something. And so I get paid to do that, which is great. TOCing is fun. And regionals was good this weekend. Again, we'll talk about it a little bit more, or Theo will break down the action later in that section specifically. But I personally struggled. Wasn't my best outing.
Okay.
For a myriad of reasons, but it's all right. Can't always be peaking, and I'm ready to go and train for nationals. So
you're hoping to peak in 3 weeks. Not right, not regionals. Like it's not about. Yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly.
So we got a lot to get to. We're gonna hit news. There's a couple of news items, and then our main events are going to be Timeout Club recap, and then also going to do a little mini preview of General Strike because they're going to North Central Regionals, hoping to see if we can get another Canadian team down to San Diego. And then we're talking all things college. There was recaps. We got previews. Like regionals are happening this weekend. It's a lot going on. Let's hit the news right now.
We now have breaking news.
All right, welcome to the news. We have the Ultimate Canada Conference, known as UCC, going to be happening November 17th to 19th in Winnipeg. Now, a couple of the sessions, the keynote speaker is Janet Command, President and CEO for Sports Manitoba. Then we have people talking about physical literacy. There's athlete development, more physical literacy, developing high performance athletes. You got Mark Lloyd, Karen Hatch, Jeff Powell are leading that session. Got Dean Wright, love him from Manitoba, been building up juniors ultimate since the dawn of time. So just really love that. It's going to be awesome. So if you are interested in that, you go to Ultimate Canada's website to check out all the action.
When did we do a little like virtual session? When was that? What year was that?
I think that was 2 years ago with Charlie and Keith, right?
I think it was just Charlie. I don't
or
think
one of
Keith.
them.
Yeah,
okay.
It was Charlie. Oh, that was fun. Anywho, we haven't been invited back, so it couldn't have been that good of a session. So, anyways, we're going to talk 4-on-4, everyone's favorite tournament out on the east side of the country. So in Chateauguay, Quebec, at Beau Chateau, April 13th and 14th. Mark your calendars, 2024. It'll also be senior and normally it's been a lot of senior, but this year we got junior, so that's going to happen again. So maybe Prime Penguin's going to come back out. That'd be kind of cool. So Prime Penguins go out to Quebec in April. So that's some kind of the Ultimate Canada news out there. So short and sweet news for today.
Only short and sweet because the main events kind of took all the news. So we got a lot to cover. We're going to be covering club first in our main event part 1, talking again all the regionals recap and then a regional preview right now.
Hey, this is Jocelyn Lee from the University of Toronto, your 2022 Huckin D1 College Women's Offensive Player of the Year. And you're listening to the Huckin podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.
All right, starting off in the Best Coast, the Northwest, we are going to be in the Open Division. So talking about, we got 2 teams kind of at this event. We have Victoria Surf and we have Furious George. So Victoria Surf was in a pool with Rhino Slam and put up a decent score against them. So Rhino is clearly the top team in this region. And so being able to rattle off quite a few points against them is quite great, especially if you're coming from Victoria, which is a smaller ultimate community. They had a nice win over Switchback as well, 12-7. And then they ended up winning their crossover versus Ghost Train, which was an upset, 14-12. So unfortunately, this meant that they had to see Furious in quarters, which they ended up losing 9-14. But a little birdie did tell me that Victoria Surf was playing super well and looked really, really good. So kudos to them. They ended up dropping their next 2 games to Switchback and Sawtooth to finish 8th overall. But I think that they maybe put it all out on the table in earlier games. Moving on to talk a little bit about Furious. So as we said in episodes past, they ended up earning a bid for the region this year. So last year they only had 2, and this year they had 3. And so they were really kind of hoping that this meant that they could make it to nationals. Obviously, they're trying to win the region, of course, as per usual, but having 3 bids is nice. So Furious cruised through their first 2 pool play games, which kind of set them up to play Sockeye and a crossover, which is kind of what they were expecting. Basically, whoever wins the crossover gets a much easier semifinal game. So they ended up playing Dark Star versus if they had lost that game against Sockeye, they'd end up playing Rhino. And so they can play Dark Star. If they beat Dark Star in semis, boom, they are going to nationals. So that was kind of like the goal that they had set out. So they ended up winning that crossover against Sockeye 15-11. And then they saw Surf, as we mentioned, in quarters. They won 14-9. And then they were set to see Dark Star. Now, Dark Star is a little bit of a dark horse because they sometimes cause upsets in this region, and today or that day was no different. So they ended up losing by 2, and now they're in the backdoor route trying to fight for their lives for the final bid. They play South from Seattle, and they end up winning that game 15-5, and now they're seeing Sockeye again in the game to go. So not what people expected. I don't think anyone expected a Sockeye-Furious game to go matchup. Furious started out on D. They went down a break early, but they got 2 back pretty quickly. And then they also broke to take half 8-7. And so, getting to start on O after half is pretty nice. And then they went on a 10-1 run total, which is kind of unheard of at this level. To go 10-1 against a team like Sockeye is pretty crazy. And one thing that is of note, Sockeye had a very, very tight bench the whole game, maybe playing max 8-9 players kind of over and over and over again, whereas Furious was rolling all 3 lines. Lots of zone, just kind of seemed like execution errors, and Sockeye just looked spooked. So Furious is going to the show for the first time since 2019. And maybe the first time since 2011 that Sockeye isn't going. So very, very dramatic. Congratulations, Furious.
Yeah, congratulations, Furious. I got to do that game on the field pass with Keith. That was the last game of the day, the very long day. And Sockeye called a timeout at 7-5 to try to break for half. They end up getting like Furious holds and then breaks twice. And then it's just Furious just like love and life after that. So I don't know what was in the water over there for Seattle, but it was like a big collapse. And I felt real like, there's always jubilation, dejection, but I felt really bad because they like zoomed in on a couple Sockeye players when they lost, and they're just like in tears. And like these are some of the vets, and so I feel kind of bad about that. But that's
also one of those players that they zoomed in on was like somebody from Japan that came to play specifically with Sockeye this year. Was it the one they zoomed in? I couldn't tell. It's hard to see on the field pass.
Yeah,
and we were also looking at it on a tiny phone.
Yeah, DY Chen's been there for a while, but I think he was one of them. But yeah, there's definitely some other people that I didn't recognize as much. So congrats to Furious. First time since 2019, as you mentioned. They didn't make it last year, so great to see them back to the dance. They also got a fundraiser going on, so I think you can just go to their social medias, and if you want to donate and send some Vancouver players to nationals, go do that.
Traffic will be doing the same thing, so don't spend all your money on Furious.
There's multiple fundraisers probably be happening. So, anywho, now we're going to go to women's. Drift was in a pool of 5. I talked about in the preview how there was like other pools with 3, but anyways, this pool has 5. They get to play a very athletic team, Dark Sky from Utah. They unfortunately dropped that game 13-3, and then they have some struggles against Schwa. They lose to Seattle N by 3, but they do salvage some of the pool play there with a win over Portland Rain Check. Love the name, 13-6. They play underground in the bracket play game and lose 7-15. And then eventually they finish 7th. And so they're in select flight again. So did they go? They went to a tournament out east this year, right? Like in the Midwest?
Yeah, they went to PUC East because the West one was during our regionals.
Yeah. So, hey, they get to go to these cool tournaments. I think it's only going to bode well for success. So Traffic, they were in a pool of 3. They take care of Seattle Soul and 7 Devils out of Boise, Idaho. Point diff of 26-2. That is not a typo. That's just what happened. So they cross over with Riot to determine who's on the other side, so to avoid Schwa. Super rainy game. Was that the same time slot as the Furious Sockeye crossover? Because I just edited that game today, and the rain was going crazy. Like, I've never seen something like that.
So some of the worst rain I've ever played in, and it was windy.
Oh, how cold was it?
Yeah, it was medium. I don't know. It's still September, so it wasn't like terrible. Like we were cold because we were wet, but it wasn't like ice.
Yeah. So they did beat Riot, which sets them up to play Dark Sky in the morning, but Dark Sky may be another dark horse because there's no info on them, like a lot of like footage or anything. Traffic goes down early, but eventually strings multiple breaks to win 15-8. The other semi was close, so Traffic players after the game they got to go watch. People are thinking Schwa the number 1 seed in this tournament. They're going to win, but Riot's the one who takes that game. So Riot and Traffic are in the final. Traffic takes a commanding lead in the first half, 8-4, and they ride it out for the 15-12 W, win the region for the 3rd year in a row. That's kind of hype. Northwest champions once again.
Whoop, whoop.
3rd time's a charm. Let's see what they can do at nationals. Let's go.
All right, heading over to the mixed division, we have a Red Flag representing BC. So they won their pool play game against Squid Inc. 15-6, and then against Quick Draw 12-9. Then they had a crossover with Moondog, which they won 15-10. So Moondog is this team. They earned the bid last year, and Flag stole it from them. Flag earned the bid this year, so I think Moondog's maybe going to hope to take the bid back. So we'll kind of see what happens in a little bit, but. Red Flag then bested lights out 15-10 in their quarter and saw a mixtape in semis. So again, you can watch this game. It's pretty entertaining. Looks very athletic. They ended up losing 11-15, but from the video, it looked pretty good. Flag is in the backdoor route to get the final bid, just like Furious was. And they ended up playing Oregon Scorch, which is a great team. And Flag narrowly wins by 2. So making it interesting out here. They then saw their 2022 bid game rivals Moondog again for the game to go. And as as Canadian fans would love to hear, Flag ended up winning that game 15-9. So a pretty convincing win. And I think this is probably the first time ever all 3 divisions from Vancouver are being represented at USA Nationals. Because like the last time a team went to USA Nationals was like 2013 and it was Odyssey.
Oh, for mixed, yeah. Like, I mean,
like maybe 2010. I don't really know. Maybe
Vancouver
back in the day, but like
let us know.
Not in recent history. Not since like at least before 2012. So
Jeff Bell might know. You might know.
Batch probably knows.
We'll see. Batch, hit us in the DMs. Okay. Now we're going to swing to the other side, to the Northeast, where I got to give some bad news. Bad news out here. Okay. There were a lot of Canadian teams out here in the Northeast, so we got to talk about all of them. Mephisto, before I even talk about Mephisto, there's a clip pools happening here, so there's a pool of 4, but they don't actually play 3 pool play games. I think this is to reduce the amount of games they play at regionals, but anywho. So Mephisto defeats Colt 13-7, and they lose to Dig 13-8, and they don't have to play the 4 seed in their pool, which was Shade. Goat wins their first pool play game against Alibi, the last seed in the tournament, 13-2, and then they beat Sprout 13-10. Keep an eye out on that Sprout team, because I'm going to talk about them in a bit. Phoenix wins their first pool play game against Mystery Box, and Red Circus beats Scoop. That's actually a pretty sweet result, because Scoop was a team that was pretty hyped up in this tournament, and then Phoenix goes and beats Red Circus. So now you have a bunch of crossovers that are happening. Goat loses big to Pony. I'm wondering if they just try to roll the lines out here. They ain't trying to throw the kitchen sink. Phoenix, though, a great result against Dig, 15-13 loss. That's tough. Red Circus ekes by Shade 12-11, but Mephisto loses a heartbreaker to Scoop, and that eliminates them on the first day. Same thing with Tire Biz Frizz. They lose to Blueprint, and so both of those teams are out on the first day, and those are maybe some teams we were potentially going to see kind of in the second place bracket. So Phoenix beats Sprout in quarters 15-13. Goat takes down fellow Canadians Red Circus 15-8. And so you got some semis with 2 Canadian teams in it. So we're feeling pretty good now on the field pass. We're feeling good. Pony squeaks by Phoenix 15-12. I'm going to say squeaks that, Goat loses to Dig 15-11. So now both of these teams are dropping into the second place bracket. And it just does not work out for the Canadian squads out here. So Goat loses 11-14 to Sprout, and Phoenix loses to Blueprint 12-10. Congrats to Blueprint. I've met Pat Steckmiller a few times. Cool dude. Some of these Blueprint lifers have probably dreamt of going to nationals, and they finally get to go. So got to give kudos to Blueprint out here. Mephisto does beat Colt and Tire Biz Frizz and Magma Bears to take 9th. Red Circus finishes 8th. So that's the Northeast. It's tough. I was off field pass for that time, but Keith and the other commentators were chirping. They're like, is Theo going to come back? Because all these Canadian teams are gone. He's probably not going to come back on the broadcast. So yeah, that was tough. Now we're going to talk women's. We have a couple teams there, Sixers, Iris, and Salty. So Sixers won their pool play games over Versa and Brooklyn Book Club with a point differential of 26-4. So kind of similar to what we saw with Traffic, just dominant in pool play. Salty takes losses to Benton Siege, whereas Iris beats Frolic. And then Starling. That was kind of the revenge matchup from sectionals. So big W from Iris there. Sixers and Iris meet in crossover. That's just to determine where people are seated for the bracket. So Sixers wins that 15-8. Salty loses a close one to Vice, 11-10. So now in the quarters, this is not a typo either. Iris stomps, and I mean stomps, Vice 15-1. Let's go. Iris beats Siege 15-9. So that sets up both Canadian teams to be in the semis. Iris falls to Brute Squad 15-11, and Sixers loses to Bent 12-8. So now they're both in the backdoor bracket. Iris eventually beating Starling on Universe, whereas Sixers beats Siege comfortably. And that sets up a game to go between the 2 Canadian teams. And Sixers takes the last bid, winning 15-11. Salty finishes 9th. I wish there were more updates about this game, because there are other game to goes happening and there's just no updates. So I actually didn't know the result till a little bit later. But congrats to Sixers for qualifying.
Yeah, I know that I heard that a lot of the Iris players also were either just being held together by tape or were not able to play anymore. And I can only assume the same for Sixers. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, but there's good reason for that. Anyways, we're going to head to the mixed division. We had Union and Lax out here. So pool play, Union beats Buffalo Lake Effect 13-8 and wild card by the same margin. So we did get an email from Owen Joyce that says, like, that explained all these names, because 2 episodes ago I was like, these names are crazy, la 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 la. And this email kind of explained all of the names. And so just wanted to say, lake effect is a weather pattern that carries an ungodly amount of snow off of a lake and dumps it onto the surrounding land. It sucks, but we embrace it and take on the name. So Union beats Buffalo Lake Effect. Now we know what that means. So there you go. Lax ends up losing to Funk and gets eliminated on day 1. Scores are not listed for their consolation games at this point. So Union played a strong Sprocket team in crossover and loses 10-14, which sets them to play Townies in quarters. So they end up losing that game 11-13. They end up playing Bowie Association in the backdoor bracket and drop that game as well. So they take 8th overall. So probably not the finish they were looking for. But as I kind of alluded to at the end of the women's division section, I think that like so many of these teams' top players were grinding it out in like 12 hours. It's not 12 hours, but like a lot of hours of tryouts just the week before, after a bunch of other events as well. So like a lot of the players on the Sixers and stuff were just at Pro Champs too, and then CUCs, and it was just like a lot of tournaments and a lot of events kind of back to back to back. And I know that tryout really did wreck a lot of people. And then going the next weekend into regionals, not ideal. And so I definitely feeling for these teams. I know Iris was definitely struggling with injuries and everything. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of the GOAT players were not at their 100% as well. So it's tough stuff. And I know that there's not that many options for when to have these tryouts because of the weather in Canada. But it's hard because the college season and like the club season, I don't know what the solution is, but it definitely did not help.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a lot. Just think about for some of these players, they're playing club, perhaps semi-pro as well, but they're playing club in the Canadian series, trying to peak there, and the US series, and trying to peak for tryouts all within like a short amount of time. So that is tough. This team is going to try to peak, and that is General Strike. They are in the North Central region. There's only one bid. They're the 3 seed overall. They play against Bucks out of Milwaukee, Nomad out of Edina/St. Louis Park, and Demo out of Des Moines, Iowa. Some of the top teams in this tournament you might have never heard of: St. Louis Lunar, Mad Men, which was the team last year that made nationals. They do have wins over Sprout and Sub earlier in the season, and then Mallard. Mallard 2 is always a meme with Ulti World, but Mallard's a decent team. Strike does hold a 15-8 win over them. Strike hasn't played Sub-Zero yet, so that will be an interesting test as well. Strike also hasn't lost a game in USAU play so far this season, and they were up 6-3 on Blueprint before Boston Invite got canceled. So take that for what you will. Blueprint's a national qualifier. We'll see what happens. They also have a 12-10 win over Scoop at that same tournament. So we talked about kind of the reinforcements they have. A couple PBHG players that have joined the squad. And so I think they might be able to do it. I'm trying to will it into existence.
We would love to see another Canadian team, because I said I wanted there to be more than last time. And I think we already are at one more. No, we had 4 last time. We had Flag, Sixers, Traffic, and GOAT. And now GOAT was just replaced by Furious. Come on, Strike. Come on. We got to increase every year. Theo, I think that wraps up our club section main event part 1, unless you have anything else to add. The college one is going to be a lot. So we're going to take a quick break and hear from a cool voice or two in our bumper, and we'll get right back to you.
Hey, this is G. Lee, coach of the Wheaties Junior Women and Queen City Bees out of Saskatchewan. You are listening to the Huckin A podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.
All right, welcome to your college recap. We are going to be starting with Steeltown in the women's division. So there were 2 pools here. Pool A had McMaster winning the pool with wins over TMU, Western, and Tula. Tula was quite a close game. They only ended up winning that game by 1. Toronto finished the pool by finishing second, winning 13-2 over Western and 12-3 over TMU. Western took 3rd overall. In Pool B, Ottawa wins the pool 4-0 with wins over Waterloo 13-4, Guelph 11-10, and Brock 9-8. So, and also Queens 13-4. But I think what's really impressive is that this young Ottawa team is learning how to win close games, and I think that's going to be really important for them moving forward. Guelph finishes second in the pool overall with wins over Queens, Waterloo, and Brock, and Queens ends up finishing 2-2 with wins over Brock and Waterloo. So this setup, like kind of how the bracket works, is the top 2 seeds kind of move on to the top. So Guelph ended up with a big surprise win, 11-5 over McMaster. So that's a thing that happened. Toronto won their game versus Ottawa 10-7, which set up a Toronto-Guelph final. So very, very exciting final. Toronto ended up winning this game by 1. Sometimes we don't see those kind of tight margins in college. I love it. I love to see that. Ottawa ended up winning third in a commanding fashion, 13-6 over McMaster. In other news, Queens won out the rest of their games to finish 5th overall, followed by Western Brock, TMU, and then Waterloo.
Yeah, I got the picks bad here. I got all the semifinalists, but I did not pick the finalists or winner right. So that is tough for the picks. So congrats to U of T, who has now qualified, and they've taken the one bid. Okay. Now we're going to go to open. These were like smaller pools. So Queens in their pool, they took care of business, beating Waterloo B and Laurier. Laurier takes care of the B team in that pool. Pool D, Trent, Ontario Tech with a big victory over TMU, the 13 and 12 seeds going at it. You would think maybe by the score that they put up on Waterloo, Trent, Ontario Tech put up 3, TMU put up 5. So you would think maybe TMU would get the dub, but it's Trent, Ontario Tech instead. Queens takes care of business in their pool over York and Toronto B. Carleton, a lot of the top seeds are taking care of business here, like Carleton here over Brock and McMaster B. But there is a quote-unquote upset. The 7 seed overall, Guelph, 5-point W over Toronto. They were the number 10 team in the power ranking. They're not going to be there anymore. They didn't have a great tournament. They're kind of falling down the rankings. But Toronto does salvage with a victory over Carleton B. Okay. This was also another spicy matchup because it's the 6 versus 8. McMaster, put them in the power rankings. They should be out by the time this episode comes out. So they defeat Western, and they have a pretty good tournament. Okay. Now there's a reseed with some crossovers happening. I'm just looking to see if there's anything of note. I mean, a couple of them were like pretty close. So Guelph squeaking by Western 10-9, Carleton squeaking by York, which is not a great result for them considering kind of the talent they have and some of the club experience, but some of that club experience was missing. So just remember that. Waterloo gets by Laurier 8-6. So then they have these like power pools going on. And as predicted, I'm going to toot my own horn. As predicted, Guelph, who's the 3rd seed in the power pool, went 2-0. I said they would beat Ottawa and Carleton because they were missing people, and Guelph proved me right, squeaking by Ottawa 11-10. Queens goes 2-0 in this power pool, beating both Waterloo and McMaster. But McMaster gets the 10-6 W over Waterloo, so that sets them up to be in the 3rd, 4th place kind of bracket there. So taking a look at the middle bracket, just some news and notes there. Western going 2-0 with a plus 18 score differential, and Brock goes 2-0 in their pool as well. Bottom pool, TMU 2-0, win over some B teams. And then McMaster B, perhaps the best B team out there, they get some W. So now let's go to the final placements. Queens beats Guelph. I did call this final. I call it right. Queens gets a W, but Guelph scores a Callahan to end the game, and they lose because they score the final point is a Callahan, but then there was already hard cap. So I hate that. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Like you hate that they don't have to like score to win.
Score to win. You got to score to win.
Especially in a final.
Come on. Like this is, anyways. Ottawa squeaks by McMaster. We use that word a lot because it's happening. 1-point victory. They come 3rd. Carleton comes 5th. I mean, there's a lot of tight games out here, and Eastern's going to be very spicy. So, like I said, I'm happy with nailing the finals and winner pick. Okay. So now there's also Quebec that happened. Danie, you're going to talk about women's because bids were handed out there as well.
Yeah, so in Pool A, we have U Laval Excellence. So their A team went 3-0 in pool play, beating McGill B. U Laval Elite, and Sherbrooke. Sherbrooke took second overall with wins over McGill B and U Laval Elite, and U Laval Elite took down the third place position over McGill B. There's a lot of Laval teams here.
Yeah, so Laval, you got to just name them A and B. I think it's just going to make it easier for us because
I'm just going to say, can I just say A and B?
Yeah, just say A and B at this point because I think it's going to be easier for you.
All right. So in Pool B, we have McGill A. Thank you, McGill. Took down this pool with a point differential of 39-10. University of Montreal took second place with wins over, what is CUUUC?
UQUAM.
Yeah, but what's the, anyways, and it doesn't matter. With this point differential of 29-0, and UQUAM kind of finished third. So we're kind of in the bracket U Laval A, Montreal A, McGill A, and Sherbrooke cruised through the quarterfinal matchups with score differentials overall 56-6. So clearly there's a top four, with the closest game being 11-4. The rest of them were like blowouts. So the semis, U Laval took down Montreal 9-5. McGill ended up beating Sherbrooke 8-4, which set up a Laval McGill matchup, which was won by Laval 9-4, which is a pretty convincing final. So Laval just kind of flexing on everybody here. In other news, Montreal took third over Sherbrooke, and U Laval B took fifth overall. So we love it when B teams out here flexing on people. One thing, we kind of didn't really talk about this, or we haven't really talked about this, but we can see like the spirit scores that are getting submitted, and sometimes like it seems that the women's division teams score each other more strictly and lower in general than the open teams do. And I've also found that mostly in the open division, some of the scores are so extremely inflated. Like somebody actually gave out a 20.
That should not be happening. That's
like, it should be 10s unless it deviates from a good game. Like, I think these people just don't understand spirit scores in college, maybe, but there should be like a walkthrough at the beginning of the season. Like, it should be a 2. Everyone gets a 2 for all the categories, unless they were bad and you have multiple examples of bad, or they're really good and you have multiple examples of really good. Anyways, rant over. Can you talk about open, please?
I will. And a fun note here is that you can set your translator on your website to like, I guess, automatically translate. So all of the French words were translated, which is really hilarious because it's now, instead of Vert or it's green and gold, which is obviously the proper translation. And then U Laval Espoir is just U Laval Hope. So that was just a fun thing for us. This pool, I mean, the main story is Sherbrooke's convincing wins. And Montreal, just like, what's happening out here? I know you're missing your Mephisto players, but they had some really not good results. They lost to McGill B 15-2. I don't want to parcel all the results. I'm not trying to, slam them out here, but not great results for them. But I have a feeling they're going to be retooled for nationals, so do not sleep on them. They're going to have a low seed in the qualifier, and they're just going to like walk over people. So be careful of Montreal. They're not going to Easterns. So McGill won the pool. They took down U Laval Elite Volontaires, not the Volunteers, and Laval Excellence. That's the A team, 15-7. So McGill and Sherbrooke kind of showing their might here. And I mean, the semis were close. McGill beats Espoir 10-8. Sherbrooke beats Laval 13-11. And then McGill takes the bid over Sherbrooke, as yours truly predicted out here. So McGill, you don't have to worry about Easterns. You're going to Easterns. You're the number 1 seed. Spoiler alert. But you don't have to worry about getting a bid this time. You can just be excited that you've already got one. So that's what happened in Quebec. And we're talking Spirit again?
No, but I think it's just to be said that Laval having 3 teams is awesome, and to have 2 of those teams kind of competing well against other teams, I think is just of note. And you and I have said we're big fans of that.
Oh, the B teams? Yeah, we forgot to talk about. I missed this, that there were 5 B teams at Steeltown. So I mean, they're all kind of finished towards the bottom of the tournament, but that's kind of what's expected for B teams. But B teams, you got to get the experience. A lot of the people on the A teams have been playing on the B. Queens is a good example. They have a lot of those. So they do a good job of developing that program. Shout out Pete Galbraith. So now, previewing. We got tournaments happening all over the country, apparently. So they tell me. One day are happening.
Yeah, I know you. I'm sorry. I'm just really excited to talk about this because it's CUUC, and everybody. This is the most anticipated event.
Burnaby, British Columbia, 1-day tournament out here. Let's go.
Only one team that's actually trying to get into nationals, and everyone else is like juniors or like
Yeah, Prime has a team out here. What's going on?
So funny. Okay, so in West, we call this Westerns. In Westerns, historical fashion, the tournament really doesn't matter for most people. But lately, like the last couple of years, okay, yeah, UVic and UBC have been vying and trying to go. But this year, UBC Open is not planning on going, and no women's teams are planning on going. So, pretty interesting. It's not much to say here. It's a 1-day tournament. Prime's going to be playing. It's not Prime from this last year. It's going to be anyone that was on Dino and Nitro that is eligible to play this upcoming season, like their top players. So it's like the next gen of, in theory, Dino.
Stars.
Yeah, playing against, this is in the women's division, UVic A, SFU, UBC B, and UVic B. And on the open side, we have no UBC A. We are doing tryouts after this. And so for the open side, so I actually would assume the UBC B team is going to have some players on it that might actually be UBC A players. But anyways, on the open side, it's UBC, UVic A, SFU, UVic B. So it'll be a quick little tournament. It's actually happening right beside where the WUC tryouts are happening in the West. So I'll be able to kind of like spy on that tournament a little bit. I mean, I'll be busy, but.
And you said one team is only going, that's UVic. So congrats, UVic. You have a bid, I guess?
Yeah, congrats. Does that mean they go to Div 1?
Yeah.
Wow.
If they choose to.
Congrats.
I think, and they told us they're going, so. Okay, now we're going to go to CPWC in Regina, Saskatchewan. So for teams in Manitoba, you got to go to fly or drive, I don't know, to Saskatchewan out here. In the open, though, all 4 teams, according to this schedule, are vying for the bid. And I said this already. Manitoba is going to be losing a lot of people, or some people, due to general strike at regionals. Can Alberta pull it off and somehow get the bid? That would really make some Ontario and Quebec teams upset because they're just expecting Manitoba to take the bid. But if Manitoba had to come through the Friday qualifier, oh, that'd be a fun story. So I'm kind of willing some chaos into existence here. On the women's side, it's Manitoba and Regina going for bids, Calgary, and the U of Hard Knocks. Like, who is this? I asked Batch, he hasn't responded, but who are you, U of Hard Knocks? You are not eligible because you're not a university team. So
now we also, sorry, go ahead.
Might be city players or something. I don't know.
I mean, I would assume so, but based on the name. Now, heading over to the Atlantics, we have quite a few schools being represented, and there's only one school that's going for the actual bid in open, right?
Yeah, I think it's mixed out here in the East Coast. So they like their mixed frisbee. So if you look at the schedule, there's only one pool and it's mixed. So you're going to break the news, or am I? You break it. You break the news.
You got it.
Oh, okay. Well, the first news is that no one has accepted the women's bid. So that's going to go to the Friday qualifier. So you have a chance to use that bid. But tell me if you've heard of the school before, folks. St. FX, according to my sources, has accepted the open bid. So St. FX is going to Div 1. I didn't even know they had a team. I don't think the results are going to be pretty. I'm sorry. I don't even know who they have. But I can tell you right now, it's probably not going to go the best for this team. So I'm sorry. I have to say it like that. But yeah, I mean, I love that. I love the ambition, but I just don't know if it's going to. Do they have club players? Do they have experienced coaches? I don't know. Maybe they do, and they're going to be a dark horse. But yeah, that'll be interesting. Congrats to St. FX for getting a bid. Dalhousie choosing not to go, or at least take the Div 1 bid right now. So that's why.
I mean, they could still go Div 2 in theory.
Yeah. They can go Div 2. They can go to the Friday qualifier if they want, but they would have automatically gotten a Div 1 bid if they had chosen to, but they chose against that. So yeah, that's Atlantic.
Yeah, we're going to be heading now to do a preview. So we have Easterns coming up. On the women's side, we have 2 bids on the line. So Toronto, which is number 2 in our power ranking, has already secured their bid. Queens, number 8 in the power ranking, came 5th at Steeltown The two have not matched up, so it'll be quite interesting to see those two play against each other. Laurier making their debut, which is 12th in D2 last year. So actually, can you break this one down? Because I feel like Easterns is just like a whole nebula of something that I don't quite understand.
Well, I mean, I think most people don't understand it because Batch, the competition person for this, whoever made the schedule, that's him, just likes to create a web of schedule that's very confusing to said viewer. So Pool A and B have 3 teams, and they're going to cross over the top seeds, and those 2 seeds will automatically qualify for quarters, whereas the 2 versus 3s will cross over, and you got to win that to go to quarters. So that's Pool A and B. And you still have Pool B to talk about. So, yeah, I'll let you go to that. Pool B.
All right. So we have Guelph, McMaster, and Carleton in this. So we have a big 11-5 win for Guelph, which is number 4 overall over Mac, number 6 overall in semis to get to Steeltown finals. So we're going to have a rematch here, which is super exciting. Carleton has been told that they are continuing to rebuild. So lower your expectations a little bit with them. So they finished 9th in D2 in 2022. So potentially a little bit less strong. But you're saying Carleton is led by Georgia Cameron and Kira McLean, both people that were on U20 when I was coaching it, and they played Stella this last summer. Both of them defensive grinders. I think maybe Kira might be O-line now, but when I knew of them, they were feisty, ferocious defenders. So it's really exciting. And they also have Alina Wong coming over from Drift.
Pool C coming at you. Okay, you got 4 teams in these pools. So kind of what I explained earlier about A and B, it's going to be Pool C and D, where there's 4 teams. If you win that, you're like the pool winner, and then you'll play the other pool winner. If you lose that final in your pool, you'll play the winner of the 3rd place of the other pool. So once again, just check the schedule. It's a little confusing. You have McGill, 7th ranked in our power rankings. They're the 3rd seed overall. They'll be taking on Montreal B, and then Brock and Waterloo get to go to battle again. Brock beat Waterloo last week, so they're making their debut in the power rankings. Congratulations. Now on the other side, Ottawa, they're going to be taking on McGill B, and then Western will take on TMU. Western already beat TMU at Steeltown, so this is a little bit of a rematch. And so Ottawa, I think they'll have a chance to kind of push some teams out here. They only lost to Toronto last weekend, so I think they're going to have a chance to push for that one of those 2 bids. So the bracket works, as I already mentioned, with kind of the winners of those crossovers. And semis are essentially games to go. If you win, you're in. But that also is the caveat that U of T isn't in the final. So if U of T's in the final, there could be a 3rd place game, potentially.
Which you'd think in theory they should be in that final.
Yeah, so if that's the case, then let me see here. The loser of the final would get in, and then the 3rd place would be the other game to go. So there's 2 bids there. I'll just do my picks quickly. I have Ottawa winning the whole thing. So Ottawa, I got you getting a bid, and I have Guelph beating McMaster for the 3rd bid. So Queen's finishing 5th.
So you're not including Toronto in this?
No, I have Toronto losing in the final, and then Ottawa gets the bid. I'm trying to make it as clean as possible. So Ottawa gets the bid, and then Guelph beats McMaster in the 3rd place game, and they go get a bid as well. So Guelph and Ottawa, who I'm predicting to get bids out here.
All right, spicy. So moving on to the open division. How many bids do we have here?
Just 1. We just got 1. We got a bunch of B teams and a couple like lower A teams that are going to play against each other. So going to run through this very, very quickly. The number 1 overall seed, McGill, they're 3 in the power rankings. They're going to take on the winner of Queensby and U of T B, so that's fun. Queensby's already beaten U of T B this season. Western and Brock rematch from last weekend. They're the 8-9 seeds. Ottawa, number 5 in our power rankings. They're going to have their main players back, and they'll take on the winner of Trent, Ontario Tech, and Carleton B. McMaster gets to play against U of T. This is a trap game, I think, for McMaster. U of T is pretty low seeded because of how poorly they did. And McMaster's already beaten U of T, but U of T gets, hey, we released the top transfer rankings. Kevin Tong, I think he's going to be back. So traveled all the way from Bank to play regionals, coming all the way back. And so maybe that will invigorate them and help them be successful. Queens, your Steeltown champions, looking for that repeat Easterns title. They won last year as well. They're going to play the winner of Algonquin and McGill B. The Wolves of Algonquin are led by Thomas Stanton, who you may have heard of. Played for the Outlaws in Phoenix. McGill B did beat UDM last weekend, as I already mentioned, but that was kind of a shorthanded UDM squad. Waterloo and Laurier get to play each other. That's fun again. They already played once. Can Laurier kind of spark an upset? Could happen. Guelph, 4, jumping all the way to 4 in our power rankings. They're the 3 seed overall. And they were missing some people, from what I was told. They played the winner of TMU versus Guelph B. TMU has some wins this season only over B teams. You know, part of me wants to see Guelph A versus Guelph B. That'd be kind of fun. It'd just be fun to see that happen. I don't know. I don't think it will happen, but it'd be fun. Carleton, the 6 seed overall, will play York. Carleton did have a great Steeltown, but they'll get some people back. So maybe they will be a little bit better. And then York holds a win over Trent and Ontario Tech. Just put that out there.
Putting it out there. And on Sunday, that's when all the semis will be happening. So we're going to be kind of seeing how the bid will shake out. But the caveat is that if it's McGill and Queens in the final, then the backdoor semifinal would be for the bid. So it's kind of like a little bit weird. You kind of got to see how things shake out a little bit. So if it's Queens or McGill is in the final and then another team that hasn't yet qualified and the other team is in the back. Anyways, it's quite complicated. But basically with the one bid, it's the highest ranking team at the end of how everything shakes out.
Yeah, the cleanest thing would be that Queens and McGill are both in the final.
And then the third place game is the bid.
Yeah, then that's the de facto game to go. It gets messier when one of Queens is in the final and then the other team isn't. And they lose, and then there's like a drop down. So there's just a bit of possible scenarios confusion here. I'm going to make quick picks again. I have McGill, Ottawa, Queens, and Guelph in the semis. And I have Ottawa upsetting McGill. McGill just got a little hangover from winning Quebec. So they're going to be chilling. And then I have Queens beating Guelph. With Queens taking the title for a second time, creating a spicy scenario, because I just want this to happen. So Guelph's going to beat McGill in the backdoor semi, which sets up Ottawa and Guelph to play each other, with Ottawa taking the bid. I trust that their players back will help them. The other caveat to what is put in the schedule by batch is if the teams have already played each other in this game, then that previous result holds, which I don't love.
I don't love that either.
It's not really fair because they probably would have played in day one. And so day one, day two is different.
Yeah, and like how you play your anyways. It makes line calling potentially a little bit different too.
Well, like in the early games, like a crossover?
Yeah, because maybe like games that might not be must-win games, like you can still kind of get through. Or I mean, you're always playing to win, of course.
Are you?
But I think you should have to I think I've seen some scenarios where not everybody's playing to win, but I think that I think you should have to win a game. I don't think it should just roll over from a different context. I think that's weird. But I'll hear about it. I'll hear about my opinion in the comments.
We'll hear about it in the comments. So we got through a lot of info.
That was fast. I think we were speaking at like 0.2 times. So
yeah, I felt like we were speaking very quickly, and that's fine. I normally listen to my podcast like 1.5 anyways, so just listen to it normal speed now if you normally listen to it 1.5.
Yeah, I feel it was like a lot of information today, and I do want to say that for the first time this year, I prepped most of this episode. So if it sounded like for the first 3/4 of it, I knew what I was talking about. I did. But for the last quarter, I did not. So
hey, stop exposing yourself.
Hey, I finally had some time to contribute to the team. So just exposing myself, but that's okay. So thank you for sticking with us for this whole episode. We're going to be doing, I guess, lots of recaps, and then we're going to do probably Club Nationals preview at some point, like not for a while, but college season is the main focus right now. So if you're a college player, like, subscribe, follow us, all that stuff, engage with us, tag us, all the things. We love it.
Road to hashtag 4K. I think we're almost at 3,500. So,
we gained like 1,000 this month.
Did we?
Oh yeah, we weren't even.
I think from CUC to now, it's like been kind of popping, and it's not like we're putting out video content. It's just like the rankings. Like people like to talk about it. So by the time this comes out, the rankings should already be out. So Danie, any final words before I'm going to go into subs only and talk about my field pass experience. So if you want to learn about kind of behind the scenes of that, you can join me in subs only. But any final words from the TOC herself, Danie Proby?
Absolutely not. Thanks, everybody.
See you later.
Bye.